Welcome to These Kids Can't Wait, discovering the world of rare disease. Welcome to These Kids Can't Wait, the podcast where we highlight the stories of patients, families, and advocates fighting for rare disease. Today, we're honored to be joined by Cyndi Frank, co-founder of the Gaucher Community Alliance and a patient living with Gaucher disease herself. Cyndi will share her personal journey, what it's like to live with Gaucher disease, the work her organization is doing to support families, and how they found creative ways to fundraise and collaborate within their organization. Cyndi, thank you so much for joining us. Could you start by introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about your journey with Gaucher's disease?
Absolutely. Thank you. My name is Cyndi Frank. I have type 1 Gaucher disease, and I was diagnosed many decades ago, back in the 1970s, when I was just 13 years old. And this was at a time when there was no treatment for Gaucher disease. And so I was told a diagnosis that I would be using a wheelchair by the time I was 20 years old, and I probably wouldn't live past 30.
Wow. And for those who aren't familiar with Gaucher's disease, can you tell us more about it and how it affects your daily life?
Yeah, of course. So Gaucher disease is what's called a lysosomal storage disorder. It's a genetic disorder. It's auto recessive. So both my parents were carriers. Um, and my brother carries my father's gene, my sister carries my mother's gene, and I ended up getting both of these gene mutations, giving me the disease. What it is I'm lacking an enzyme. And without this enzyme, I can't break down a sugary fat that everyone has in their body. I can't break it down. It's called glucocerebrosidase. And not being able to break this down, it builds up in certain organs. For me, it's building up a lot in my liver, my spleen, my bones, lungs. And because of that, it causes a whole slew of symptoms.
Yeah. And you were saying you were originally diagnosed when you were 13 and that you wouldn't have a full life expectancy. How are you still here today? Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Absolutely. Well, it's the miracle of research. Um, about a year after I was diagnosed, we found a researcher, a doctor, Dr. Roscoe Brady at the National Institutes of Health. And he was amazing. He became like an uncle to me. And he gave us hope. He said that he was doing research for a treatment that now is called enzyme replacement therapy. And the first ERT, enzyme replacement therapy, was for Gaucher disease. So, starting at about 14 years old, twice a year, I went to the National Institutes of Health for 1 to 2 weeks at a time, and I was part of the research there. And about 10, 15 years after that, there was a trial at the National Institutes of Health for this enzyme replacement therapy. This was in the late 1980s, and it worked. And so, actually, while I was in the trial, it got approved by the FDA, and it saved thousands of lives. It changed people's quality of life. For me, it was a life changer, and I really owe my life to Dr. Brady, Dr. Roscoe Brady.
Wow, that's pretty cool. How long was the trial?
It was 2 years. So the original trial, we call them the Courageous 12, and I was not part of this initial 12 because I was too sick to be in the trial. At that point, my spleen weighed over 20 pounds, so I looked pregnant. My liver was enormous. My bones, I was not using a wheelchair, but my bones were very brittle. My skin was yellow. The whites of my eyes were yellow. If I sneezed, I got a nosebleed for hours at a time. I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs. And I was actually too sick to have the biopsy that was the test to get into the trial. And it was a biopsy of the hip. And so we made plans to take out my spleen and have a partial splenectomy. And I knew by taking out my spleen, now the wear and tear is going to go to my bones. So if a treatment didn't come quickly, I would be using a wheelchair like they predicted. I got into this trial when I was 28 years old. And once I had my spleen removed and I was healthy enough to have the testing, I got into what they call the low dose protocol, where they tested a much lower dose, um, which ended up not being approved. It was the higher dose that was approved, and it changed my life.
Yeah. And are those the typical symptoms that most people have with type 1 Gaucher's disease?
Yes. So with type 1, um, it's different in every person. Some people it goes to their bones first, some to their liver and spleen. The fatigue levels are huge because at the time I got in treatment, my platelets were down to 11,000. So I had almost zero clotting factor. And my hemoglobin, my hematocrit, all my red counts were so low that it gave such extreme fatigue. Some people have bone pain and bone crises. I've had a bone crisis that put me in the hospital for 2 weeks on a morphine drip. Um, some people it affects their lungs, and usually they have one of the more severe gene mutations when it starts affecting the lungs. So, but yeah, a lot of bruising, a lot of fatigue. The bones just crumble. A lot of hip replacements, and treatment has changed all of that. I think for the people who got on treatment a little bit older, they still have some bone pain and fatigue issues. But if you're young and you get on treatment before you're symptomatic, you'll never have a symptom for Gaucher disease.
Yeah, that's so scary, that your hemoglobin and your platelet levels got that low. How old are most kids now when they start enzyme replacement therapy?
Some they're young. Now we have okay, we're really pushing hard for newborn screening in each state. But sometimes in the Jewish community, there's genetic testing. If we know early on that the child has Gaucher disease, what we test are the biomarkers, and as soon as those biomarkers start to change, you start talking about therapy. So I know some people who have been on therapy with type 1, not at birth, but starting at about a year or two of age.
And is Gaucher's disease common in the Jewish community?
It is. It's the most common or one of the most common genetic diseases with Ashkenazi Jews, but it is not solely Jewish. So there's one or two mutations that are more common, and because they're milder mutations, they've been able to, and it's a longer lifespan. They've been able to really, get through the community. There's over 400 mutations, I think, for Gaucher disease. So it can be sporadic or it's genetic. And some of the other mutations are much more severe. I personally, being half Jewish, have the Jewish Ashkenazi mutation, but I also have a more severe mutation, which is for a different type of disease that I'll talk about through my mother's Swedish heritage. And so I have a more severe neuronopathic type of this gene, and then I have the more mild non-neuronopathic type of the gene.
And are there different types of Gaucher's? You were saying there's different variants. What are the different types?
Yeah. So there's three types of Gaucher disease. Type 1 is the type I have. It's non-neuronopathic, meaning it does not affect the central nervous system and it doesn't go to the brain. There's a type 2 and a type 3 of Gaucher disease as well. Types 2 and 3 are what's called neuronopathic Gaucher disease. They affect the central nervous system, and they affect the brain. And because we don't have any treatment for anything that can cross the blood-brain barrier for Gaucher disease, this section of the Gaucher community is very sick. Type 2 disease, they usually don't live past 18 months, and type 3 without treatment originally lived into their 30s, but they are both taking the treatment for type 1, so it's helping some of their symptoms but not all, and it is extending their life.
Yeah, and they're still waiting for a treatment, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking. It's so needed in this community for types 2 and 3. There was one trial for gene therapy. There are a few treatments that are in the pipeline, and we need to get them to market as soon as possible.
Absolutely. What do you wish more people understood about living with a rare disease?
Wow, everything. Um, You know, when a disease is rare, it means that it doesn't have the attention it needs. When a disease is more common and a lot of money can be made on a treatment, a lot more energy and funds and research is going to be put toward the more common disease. So it's so important, although I've heard now there's between 7 and 10,000 rare diseases. So if you bulk us all together, we're not that rare. But each disease, some only have a few patients, some have hundreds, some have thousands. And these diseases are not getting they're not getting the attention they need. I wish everyone could really stand together and push for more research. And that's a push everywhere. Everything from what the FDA can approve to what drug companies are doing to what researchers at universities are, and a push for bringing new, brilliant researchers into these fields to help solve these puzzles.
Yeah. Is that what inspired you to start the Gaucher Community Alliance?
Um, Yeah, actually, for the Gaucher Community Alliance, we're 6.5 years old now. And I and another colleague, Aviva Rosenberg, started the organization together. I had worked for about 11 years for another patient organization that had pulled back some of its services. And a lot of it, because I knew so many hundreds of patients in our community that a lot of people came to me and said, we need more. Patients needed more services. The neuronopathic 2-3 community needed so much more. And so Aviva and I met and we decided to start this organization really with a mission to help patients. No one should live with this disease alone. We all really need to provide as many services as we can so that people can live with their disease.
So, what's the mission of your organization? Who do you primarily serve, and do you do fundraising? Do you do patient advocacy, patient identification? What's kind of your mission?
Well, our mission is really what I just said. It's to help those affected with all types of Gaucher disease live their fullest lives possible. And we do that through three pillars. So we have a lot of peer-to-peer support, and it's really important to us to connect community members with other community members, with researchers, with industry, to really make those connections. We work what we call a triangle of patient advocacy so that we can, these three important parts, the researchers and the medical doctors and the pharmaceutical and biotech industry and the patients and patient organization, if we all can have clear, open communication and find where those needs are, then we can create programs around meeting those needs. So we also provide a lot of education. We do it through conferences, webinars, patient meetings, and provide as many patient and family resources as are needed. And we also have a governmental and legislative advocacy arm where we do a lot of work on Capitol Hill and try to push these treatments to market and get the right laws passed so that patients have more options.
Yeah. And what states have you found the most success when dealing with legislation?
Um, you know, I don't think I have an answer for that. Each state is so individual. So with newborn screening, we're now only in 7 states, so we have a long way to go, and it's a very laborious process, and it's getting people on board. It's really making a statement for your case and trying to get approved in that state, and it's not that easy. It takes a lot of work.
So, Cindy, how do you connect newly diagnosed families with your community?
We have a fantastic program. So, one of our teens, she had her bat mitzvah several years ago. This was about 5+ years ago. And she held a fundraiser and she raised money for what we call our new patient program. And when we learn of a new patient, and usually it's either someone reaches out to us or we see something on Facebook and we reach out to them, ask them a little bit of personal information, and we send them a new patient box that's catered specifically for them. So if it's a child, we find out that child's favorite color, their favorite superhero. And, sometimes with the infusions, they can be painful. We put what's called a little buzzy in there, which is something that looks like a bumblebee and makes the site numb. If it's an adult, we put different information. And then, of course, there's resources and just really good information that lists all the ways they can connect with other patients. So we also, years ago, I and another patient, this is outside an organized patient organization, but we started a closed Facebook group. And this was early on in Facebook, maybe when there was like 1 million users. And we now have a couple of thousand people in this group. We keep it to patients and family members only. So in order to get in, you have to answer questions. And it's a safe space for patients to share information, to talk, to feel that they're not being watched. And I mean, nothing is 100% safe when it's on the internet, but we really try to create a safe space. And then we also, on our regular, public Facebook page, we put a lot of information there, and we're just constantly trying to connect people to people because it helps you. It helps you with your disease.
What a good resource for families so they can connect, because there must be a huge emotional toll on these families, correct?
I think it's beyond what anyone can imagine if they don't have something like this in their lives. I know personally for me, I had been diagnosed at least 15 years before I got treatment, and I got sicker and sicker. And I was able to make it through college, but by the end of college, I couldn't work, and I was too sick to live on my own. And what's interesting is as I became more symptomatic and got sicker, I went more into denial about my disease. And I was horrified about it. I didn't want my mother to tell anyone. It was genetic. I couldn't shower enough or scrub my skin enough. It was in my veins, it was in my blood. I felt I had such depression. I was suicidal for years. And as I got more symptomatic and sicker, my depression got worse. And I had to go to therapy to get through that. And I started that long before I got on treatment. But it's not something that you can work through right away. And I learned, I really tried to get past this and turn the way I felt like a victim into being a victor, and the way I felt kind of helpless into being empowered. And so I just started learning how to flip it around. And the first time I spoke to someone on my college campus, I went to the graduate program and I asked if they had any sort of free counseling program. And they did. And I just started talking to someone, and all this stuff that I kept inside for so long since I was diagnosed, I started to talk about it and I started to tell people about my disease. And I didn't get shame from other people. I didn't get people feeling sorry for me. I got the opposite. I got people saying, wow, I can't believe you've lived with this and you're still going and you're still carrying on. And then the more I really became empowered by this, I started doing more for the disease and started doing a lot of public speaking, and eventually went to work for one organization and eventually starting another one. And to be able to pay this forward and to help others who I see could fall into the same rut I did, that's what we have to nip in the bud. And so, as a patient organization, what we've been able to do is create some program around this. And we've got a teen group now where we get teens together who have Gaucher, both types 1 and 3. And we brought them all to Capitol Hill this past June. And we had 30 teens and family members in Capitol Hill all speaking with their congresspeople about certain issues that we need change for. And it was so empowering, and it changed their lives. And now these young people love being around one another and they support one another. And so hopefully the emotional aspect of this disease, which affects everybody differently. Um, I think with really being able to share with someone else who's going through the same thing, it makes a world of difference.
Yeah. And what a hard stage of life for you to go through with this disease. But because of that experience, you're able to turn around and support others who are in the same situation. So
Yeah.
we have a motto in our family: stronger than life is hard. So, and I definitely see that in you.
If the option is to be a victim or a victor, I want to be a victor. And so how do I do that? What are the steps I have to take to get to the top? And sometimes you go to the top and you dream big and then work backwards and start saying, okay, if I need to do these 5 things to be a better patient, to be more empowered, to do something about it, then I'm going to start to take those steps. And if I don't know how to do it, I'm going to ask for help, and I'm going to ask someone else, and I'm going to ask them to do it with me.
So, Cindy, fundraising for rare disease can be incredibly difficult. What strategies have worked best for your organization?
Well, incredibly difficult is an understatement. It's really challenging raising money for a rare disease. Part of that is because most people haven't heard about it, so there's no interest in it. As a patient organization, when we first started this organization, it's the first thing we looked into. How are we going to get funding? So the first thing we did is write up what our organization is going to do and what we're going to be called. And we had already come up with a logo. And so we really created great materials. And because I had already had connections at some of the drug companies from my prior work, um, I reached out to all the drug companies that had a stakeholder in Gaucher disease. Um, and I said, this is what we're doing. Would you support this? And they all came back with absolutely. So I think after that, we applied for our 501c3 status and we started to make it official. And we went to the drug companies and applied for grants, and we got grants. Not a lot at first, at first it was just 2 of us on a volunteer basis, but both of us patients. And then we went out to the community. We created Facebook. We created a page and we started announcing it in the group that already existed. And it took a while because there was another organization. There was a little confusion because I was with both organizations. But I have to say that it really is the drug companies that are helping to fund us. And it's not just one, it's several companies. But we also go into the patient community. And that was a grassroots effort. As a small organization and a rare disease, we went to the patients and just started doing a fundraiser. October is Gaucher Awareness Month. It's coming up. And we just started sending out letters and sending out emails and any information we could collect. One of the first things we did was hold a webinar, and it was all about drug pricing and um, why drugs for rare disease are so expensive. And the people that signed up for this, they became our first email people. So we just started getting out there, and then we started asking. The amount of money we raise from the patient and family community is a small fraction of what we're raising from the industry stakeholders. But it's very important to try to have as many revenue streams as you can. And I think it's very important for the patient community. When you make that donation, when you send a gift, that's one step away from being a victim. You're doing something about it. You're helping your cause. And not everyone can afford to do that. So we really try to bring in as many. We ask for our patient community, if they work for corporations, if they make a donation, will their company double or triple that gift? So there's so many creative ways. We do some smaller fundraising events. You can do 5K walks. We just recently had one of our board members, who is the parent of a type 3 little boy, they did a concert there with it was done for it's in Chicago with Lurie Children's Hospital, and they choose a disease that raised a really nice amount of money for us. So we really try, we ask other our patient community to hold an event on our behalf and raise funds for the organization. You can even around your birthday or something like that. There's so many ways, but once you get your community members to help you, you start to double it, triple it, quadruple it. However many people out there you can help for to raise money for the cause, absolutely do so.
And the funds that you raise, it goes towards helping the patient community. It helps research. It helps the development of drugs, correct?
No, we are not funding research or drug development. What we do for research and drug development, we do on all the other ends. We connect our patients with researchers, family members, so that they have a voice, so that they can help with trial design, so that they can help, like in a patient advisory board, talk about their needs. So we help the drug development in other ways, but the amount of money as a patient organization we could raise toward, the millions and billions of dollars it takes to bring a drug to market, the funds that we raise is better spent on patient resources.
Cyndi, can you share how your organization has partnered with pharmaceutical companies in the past?
Absolutely. So we have a wonderful relationship with the biotech and pharmaceutical companies that either have a treatment to market or have a treatment in the pipeline. And one of the things we do as an organization, I get the Google alerts every day. If it mentions Gaucher disease, it's dropped into my box. And I look and I see what's happening in the community, who's doing research. So when I learn of a new drug company, first thing I do is reach out to them. I let them know that we're a patient organization, we're just an alliance of patients, and that how important we feel the patient voice is in research, and we're willing to help. So we do that either if we do bring together a patient advisory board, we always ask and expect that they're compensated for their time. Um, that's fair, and it's helping them to make a lot of money down the road someday. But we will participate in any way that benefits the patient. As a patient organization, my colleague and I have monthly, quarterly meetings with these drug companies. We share the ways, what programs can we create. We talk about what the patient needs are and how we can create a program around that. And then we ask them to help fund it. Usually, so something like our governmental and legislative advocacy has been very successful in being funded by the drug companies because they're very interested in this. Because if we can get the right laws changed, if we can get, fast track to the FDA for a treatment, that's going to help them get their treatment to market faster, and it's going to help us get treatment to patients faster. So yeah, so we also have a professional advisory council. So we don't have the normal medical advisory board, but our professional advisory council includes some patients, a couple from our patient org and other patients. It includes a representative from each drug company that's a stakeholder, and it includes some of the Gaucher medical experts, researchers, nurses, genetic counselors, and others. And we get together twice a year and we talk and we find those unmet needs together, and then we figure out how to solve them.
That's incredible and very helpful in the long run to these companies that could potentially or are creating drugs for the Gaucher's disease community.
It really is. And we have a voice within these organizations. We encourage them to have good patient services. Just like for other rare diseases, Gaucher disease drugs are ridiculously expensive. And so we encourage these drug companies to have patient assistance programs. They have case managers. They can walk through patients and families on what insurance to get, how to get it. So it's really it's been incredibly helpful for our patient community. These sorts of really good open relationships. Like I said earlier, we will do whatever it takes to benefit the patient.
And what gives you hope for the Gaucher community right now?
Well, there's some good treatments in the pipeline. Um, of course, there's new trials for type 1 gene therapy. So, gene therapy is for type 1 disease. There's some SRTs in the pipeline for type 3. So, they're really working on treatments that can cross the blood brain barrier. So there is hope. We need it faster. We need it quicker. If we are there was a trial for type 2 disease. It unfortunately was stopped, but the patients that were in it, there's a couple of successes. And if there's gonna be a treatment for type 2, where they're sometimes diagnosed at birth, and sometimes they never leave the hospital after they're born, and they need to be diagnosed at birth, and so that they can get these treatments immediately, and that's where the importance of newborn screening fits in.
Yeah. And if you could give advice to a new rare disease organization, just grassroots, where would you tell them to start?
Where to start? Well, first, don't give up hope. And it anything is possible, but it takes hard work and dedication. And I see, Erin, what you're doing, and that's exactly that hard work and dedication that you need to do to help this. I think that it's very important, starting a new patient organization, is to talk to your patient community, get an understanding of what their needs are, and then start creating your programs around those needs. Each disease is so individualized, everyone's symptoms are different, and those needs are different. Uh, for type 1 disease, we have several treatments to market, but what we need for people at 65 and they go on Medicare, they can no longer get home infusions, and they have to start going back to an infusion center. So there's still ways, even with a treatment to market, to advocate and make change and help serve that patient community. The next is start looking on the internet and finding those companies that have an interest in your disease or in your category of diseases. When a disease is so rare and no one's heard of it, they don't even know to do the research. So get it out there, have a voice, create a day of the year, a month a year, any reason to just keep getting out there and raising awareness. And now with videos, create videos. So social media is such a wonderful tool to raise awareness. Keep plugging away. And of course, the elephant in the room, the money, right? It costs money to do this, especially if you have to leave your job and do something like this, you need to earn an income. And that's one of the hardest things to get funding for. And so um, go to the patient community and see if you can start there. But when you find these companies are doing research, ask for support. That's how you partner. It has to be fair, it has to be even. And so it's a two-way street. So the patient organization can help the drug company when it comes to terms of whatever can help their patients. And the drug company can help the patient organization, and it's in their best interest because they're going to be able to understand that patient community better and make a better treatment.
Yep. And I feel like big pharma gets such a bad rap a lot, but without them, a lot of these rare diseases wouldn't have treatments. We wouldn't have hope. We wouldn't have opportunities. So you're right. You want to develop a good relationship with them. You want to help them, and they do want to create a drug that helps these rare diseases out there.
One of the things I've seen along the way is, yes, Bottom line, the drug company is there to earn money, a lot of money. And that gets in the way all the time. So the patient organization has to make sure to stand strong. You cannot be taken advantage of. You're not a marketing arm for the drug company. You're trying to help save your child and
Yeah.
bring a treatment to market. So there are ways, and the company, even if it's a small startup, they have funding, they can help.
All right. Cyndi, if you could share one message with a newly diagnosed family, what would it be?
It seems a little odd to say welcome to the community, but it's always nice to be welcomed to a community. Um, One of the first things I would say is we're here. Uh, we're here to help. We're here to be by your side. We're help to provide whatever you need to work through this disease. And we're a community.
Yeah. And I'm sure they appreciate that. And it gives
Yeah.
them some comfort knowing they have someone to talk to.
Yeah.
And how can listeners support the Gaucher Community Alliance and get more involved?
Well, there's lots of ways to get involved. We have, of course, the one of the best, and first ways is always to help support financially and make a donation. If you go to our website at gauchercommunity.org, there's very easy ways to make a donation, but there's also a lot of ways to volunteer. We constantly need people in their states to send letters to their Congress people, to governments. We need people to come to Capitol Hill with us and to advocate on the Hill. And we organize certain trips every year going forward. We're probably going to have a special trip like that. We need people to be a mentor. We can provide you with people in your area to reach out to and reach out to those people and support one another and get to know one another. And engage, learn more, log on to our webinars, come to our in-person meetings. Um, it's so important to be part of the community and engage that way. And everybody who does, I guess they just have a little bit easier of a time with what they're going through.
Exactly. What significance does October have for Gaucher disease?
Well, October 1st is International Gaucher Awareness Day. And Gaucher organizations from around the world celebrate this by trying to raise awareness. In the US, we tag on an entire month to it. So the month of October is Gaucher Awareness Month. And we have lots of activities throughout the month that are fun to get involved with. We're going to be posting every day of the month in October videos, photographs, community members, and we're also having an art project called the Zine Project. And we're asking people to reach out. Our teens are heading this up, and everyone will create a zine, and these zines, and mail them back to us. And these zines will be displayed on a wall at our conference next year in Phoenix from October 11 to 13, 2026. But in the meantime, we're asking our community members who make a zine to send that out within their community members and get votes. Because there will be a winner, but that's up to you to really push out your zine and Gaucher disease within your own community. And that way we hope to raise awareness.
Okay. And what's a zine?
A zine is, those like people create like a board and they cut out, I don't know what they call them, but they cut out things from magazines, and it's things that you want, things that you want to do, things that you like. Well, a zine, it comes from Zine. Oh, maybe it's pronounced a zine. I'm not sure. But a zine or a zine comes from the word magazine. And
Oh, okay.
so you cut things out and you actually fold it up into a smaller piece of paper, but it opens up like a book, and it's your Gaucher story. Whatever you want to put in this, you can add to your story. And so it's a great way to help get the word out there, and so that people can understand that Gaucher disease affects all people, all backgrounds, all languages, all ages. And being able to put your patient's story out there like that will help raise that awareness.
I love that idea.
Yeah,
I
it'll be
think that is
fun.
awesome.
Yeah.
And when is this conference?
Oh, the conference will be next year in 2026. And it's our national, really international, because we work very closely with the National Gaucher Foundation of Canada. Their executive director serves on our board. And we invite people from all over North America to come to our patient and family conference. In 2026, it's just outside of Phoenix, Arizona, October 11 through 13, 2026. So we're hoping to see a lot of the Gaucher community there.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I can be there too. That's where I'm from, is Phoenix. So I
Yeah,
would love to join.
we would love it if you could come by.
All right. That sounds good. Well, Cyndi, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story and the incredible work that you're doing with Gaucher Community Alliance. It really is inspiring.
Erin, thank you so much. It really is an honor to be here. And if anyone out there, it doesn't matter what disease, has questions or needs some advice, you can reach out to me at info@gauchercommunity.org, and we'll see how we can help. And it's very important for the rare disease to work together.
If you'd like to learn more or get involved, visit the Gaucher Community Alliance website. The link will be provided in the show notes below. And to our listeners, thank you for being a part of this movement. Together, we can bring more awareness, more support, and more progress for rare disease families.
Thank you for joining us on These Kids Can't Wait. Every story shared brings us one step closer to awareness, advocacy, and action. If you've been inspired, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode.
To learn more about the Lost Enzyme Project or donate to the cause, you can visit our website, Instagram, or Facebook page. Those links will be provided in the show notes below. Thank you again, and remember, these kids can't wait, but together, we can make a difference.